This is Rogers TV.
Focused on quality and convenience, there isn't much you won't find at Marie's Mini Mart. Home-style breads, sandwiches, plus a variety of artisan breads and delicious single-serve desserts available exclusively at our Frecker Drive location. Marie's Mini Mart, with 25 locations wherever you go, there we are.
Hello, I'm Karl Wells. My guest today is a professional singer, musician, performer. You may not recognize his face. He hasn't done a lot of professional performing here in St. John's, but if you go to Germany and mention his name, I'm guessing that a lot of people probably would know this gentleman who sits beside me today because he has spent many years in Germany singing in opera, operetta, musicals, and so a lot of those fans would know my guest today. And it's my pleasure to welcome him to the program. He is E.Mark Murphy, and welcome, Mark.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Great to see you today. And first of all, you're from here. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your growing up years, a little about that.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm born and raised here. Mm-hmm. My family was always involved in music somehow. Music was always part of our life. You know, family gatherings, there was always music, sing-alongs, that type of thing. My mother sang in choirs. My grandmother was always singing. Apparently, I never really knew my grandfather very well, but apparently I sound just like him, which is a really neat thing to hear from aunts and uncles and stuff. So yeah, music was always supported in our family. So it was a happy time. And then as I got into high school, got more interested in music, and then it just sort of went from there, I guess.
It sounds like you were born with the music gene.
I guess so, yeah. There was, like I said, there was always music. I remember from a very, very young age, I actually contemplated whether or not I would tell the story, but who cares? From a very small age, I remember I would sleep over at my grandmother's house, and then when I would go to use the bathroom, I would make her lie down on the bathroom floor and sing the Star of Logie Bay to me. So there was always something musical going on in our house.
And then you decided to study music at Memorial, mm-hmm. and you did voice production. Now when you went in to study music, mm-hmm. Seriously study music, were you thinking about a career, a professional career in performance, or were you thinking maybe, well, I'll teach singing or whatever?
Yeah, so for me, it was always performance. Mm-hmm. That was the only thing I wanted to do. In my mind, that was the only thing I could do. So my eye was always on either stage or screen somehow. I loved, watching movies, and I was fascinated by how the cameras worked and about how actors could really draw you in with just a look or something like that, right? So growing up, I didn't get to see a lot of theater here in town, but as I moved away and was more immersed in it, I thought live theater is where it's going to be at for me somehow.
When you were coming up and throughout your life, have there been performers, music performers, who have inspired you, whom you've admired and wanted to be like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for musicians, for me, there was a gentleman at the Metropolitan Opera called Anthony Lectura. He was more of a character actor, and I was fascinated by that. He was never the lead role or the heroic tenor, the first line tenor. But he got to play tons and tons of little roles, and that fascinated me because he was just so able to change himself into whatever role he was required to be in. So that was fascinating to me. Others would have been also character actors. Jonathan Pryce, he played the first engineer in Miss Saigon.
I saw him in Miss Saigon.
Did you?
Yes.
very jealous. I find him in all the things he does in movies, I find him fascinating. If somebody was to say one person you'd like to meet in your life besides Karl Wells, I'd pick Jonathan Pryce.
I just saw Jonathan Pryce in The Crown. I think he played Prince Philip.
He sure did.
Yeah,
and brilliantly.
So where would you have encountered singers from the Met? Like, how would you have heard of Metropolitan Opera singers?
I think not until I moved away and went to school in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of my teachers in Boston said, you need to go down to New York and have a lesson with Mr. Lachura. And then I, of course, started researching him and seeing what he was doing. Yeah. And then realized what my teacher was saying to me was, there is this whole career out there for you that is not the first tenor, that is not the Cavaradossi or Siegfried or what we sort of think as the tenor in opera. There's this whole other line of a career that you'd be perfect for. Go and learn more about it. And I did, and it just absolutely took me in, and I embraced it and just fell in love with it.
So, Mark, you mentioned one of your teachers in Boston. I'm just curious, were there any people at Memorial who became mentors, or and Boston too? I mean, have you had mentors in your life?
Absolutely. I think it started here with Susan Quinn. She was one of the first people in high school to recognize that maybe there was something there and really supported her. At Holy Heart, yep. While I was there, I was taking lessons. I didn't start voice lessons until I was 15 in high school with Genevieve Halfyard. She took me under her wing right away. Adore her. And then as I got into university, Carolyn Hart was my voice teacher there. And she really was one of the first people to say, let's try some opera, and gave me a chance. I remember in my 4th year, we were doing the opera scenes, and one of the scenes we did was the second scene of the second act of Albert Herring, where Albert, he's just been crowned May King. He's very, very timid and very, very much under the thumb of his mother. And so he accidentally gets drunk and just completely lets loose. And so that was a good 20 to 25 minute scene, mostly of me singing with my colleagues on stage. And Dr. Hart really gave me an opportunity to do that and trusted me with that, and that was a lot of fun. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Doug Dunsmore also. I think he in my 2nd year at MUN, I decided that I was going to audition for U of T and go to Toronto to the music school there. And he hauled me aside and he said, I was accepted. And he said, you can go to U of T, but just know that here at MUN, you are going to be a bigger fish in a little pond with more opportunities. Up there, you may get more opportunities, but there's a lot of people up there. And you may get I don't even really know how to say it. Lost in the wash.
Yeah.
And I know that he meant it very supportively, like, stay here, there's a lot more you can do here, right? And so because of him, I just thought, that's actually the right thing to do, and so I'm grateful to him for that. And of course, being in his choirs, I learned an awful lot as well.
So from Boston, you went to Boston to do your master's,
Do my master's,
right?
yep.
So from Boston, you decided to, stay on that academic track and go to Germany and study. Why did you go to Germany, and where did you go?
So from Boston, I actually ended up in Switzerland first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I ended up at the International Opera Studio. It's sort of an apprenticeship program at the Zurich Opera House. So started there. And then from there, I was there 1 year, and then I got my first job in Germany. So my first job was in a very small theater in a very small suburb of Dresden. So I lived in Dresden, and the theater that I was at was in a town called Radebeul. The theater might have had 200 seats, real small, but it had its own orchestra, had its own chorus. It was funded by the government and was treated like almost like any of the other bigger houses in Germany, subsidized and taken very seriously.
So, when did you make the decision to kind of stick around Europe and work professionally to make some money?
I think I think it was, for me, in my head, it was as long as I was working, that's as long as I was going to stay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And how many years were you there?
I was there almost 15 years.
Okay, so you did good.
I lived the dream.
You did good.
It was great.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, the decision to come home was mine. I thought, okay, I've lived the dream. I've done this. I've traveled. I've done my dream roles that I've always wanted to do in my life. I've done everything that I wanted to do. And I started missing home. You know, my parents were getting older.
Yeah.
Nieces and nephews were starting to get older. I was missing birthdays, missing weddings, anniversaries. So it was time to come home for me.
So, Mark, I assume you speak German pretty well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other languages?
French and a little bit of Italian, I would say.
So, and you would probably have sung in Italian for sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. You went into the German repertory theater.
Mm-hmm.
They have repertory theater in England, although it's a pale, example of what it used to be. But what is repertory theater like in Germany? Is it fairly healthy?
Oh yeah. It's still.
I know they have like hundreds of opera houses in Germany.
Yeah. I mean, it's not what it used to be. It used to be that pretty well every town has its theater, and every town had its ensemble. In recent years, theaters have started closing down. Some have started amalgamating, but aside from that, the system is very much alive and well. And what exactly that means is, so at least every major town will still have an opera house or theater with an ensemble. It's very much heavily government subsidized, either from the city or from the state or from the federal government. So there's those sort of three tiers of theater. And each theater will have a singing ensemble, depending on how big the house is. Every theater will have a singing ensemble, which I was a member of. I was a soloist. They'll have a chorus, an orchestra, and then some houses will also have like an acting troupe and a ballet. The theater that I was at has recently opened up a puppet theater as well. So like they work with massive puppets, and that's an art form in itself, of course. So and we're paid a salary just like everybody else, a normal job, health insurance, pension, all that kind of stuff. So I think artists, singers, live performers are very lucky in Germany.
Yeah. So what was it like the first time you went out on stage before hundreds of people in Germany and you're singing in German?
I was terrified.
I was exactly
terrified.
You had to
terrified. Yeah. So I guess like the best way to describe it is to compare it to here. Singing in the Kiwanis Music Festival, you learn your 3 songs or whatever for your concert group, and one of them had to be a German lead, and the sort of rule of thumb was, if you mess up the words, just keep going, make it sound German. That's part of performing anyways, right?
Yeah.
We're all human. If you have a mind slip, you keep going. But then I thought, at one point it dawned on me like, I can't do that in Germany because they understand what I'm saying, right? So that was a little terrifying to me, but we're so well rehearsed there. The houses have staff accompanists, and you're scheduled for rehearsals on a regular basis. Depending on the show as well, you'll have a prompter, which is kind of fun. It's from the view of a stage, it's just like a little head in a box. So the prompter is basically, in a box this big. Often from an audience point of view, it's disguised as a rock or a part of the scenery, right? So the audience almost doesn't notice there.
Yeah.
But and you gain a real relationship with your prompters. So they know they just need to see a look from you, and they'll throw a word at you, right?
Wow.
So that's the beauty of a repertory theater, because on a Tuesday night I may be doing Tales of Hoffmann. Wednesday night it may be Tosca. On Thursday night it might be a different show, right? So to keep all these different languages and music and text straight in your head, it's nice to have that little safety net of the prompter there.
The opera fans in Italy, for example, are extremely knowledgeable when it comes to opera.
Yep.
And, you know, they've been known, for example, at La Scala to actually boo if they don't like the way you're singing or whatever. What's it like in Germany? I mean, how seriously do they take opera, for example, in Germany?
I think they take it pretty seriously, perhaps not as serious as the Scala audience.
Yeah.
And it would depend, I think, on where you are in Germany. For example, in Dresden at the Semperoper, they would take Strauss very seriously, because that's where Richard Strauss wrote and premiered many, if not all, if I'm not mistaken, all of his operas. So they take German Romantic opera very seriously. And Bayreuth, for example, in Bavaria,
yes,
many people would pilgrimage there every year to see Wagner, and they would take their Wagner very, very seriously. So at the house where I was, people didn't take their opera all that seriously, but they let us know. They never booed singers. They never booed singers because, and I'm speculating, because I think that the audience knows that we're human. Right? I have been on stage many, many times in that house where, and the premiere night, you know, we all take our bow at the end of the night, and then the creative team will come on stage, you know, set designer, costume designer, director, lighting designer, and that's where the boos come. If the audience doesn't like the production, like how the director has said it, then they're very, very vocal about that. So it was always on premiere night to be like, okay, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And yeah, I've been on stage many nights when the boos just started coming. It's
interesting that in North America, opera isn't as widely loved or appreciated.
Yeah.
It's not the same in Europe. Why do you suppose that, you know, opera is confined to very small pockets in terms of, you know, its popularity in North America?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a number of reasons. Number one is the availability of opera in Germany or in Europe, where every town has a theater or had a theater, that the towns, that the countries are so close together that travel is easy between them. So I think the readily availability of opera and live theater is much more accessible than here. I think that the price of going to the theater, it makes it much more accessible. Like you can get a ticket, even at the Vienna Staatsoper, you can get a ticket for 20 euros. I mean, you're up in nosebleed or whatever. But many theaters you can get tickets for under 50 euros. Whereas here, you know, you go to see the COC or any of the bigger, or the Met, you know, you're spending a couple $100 on a ticket. So I think that shuts out people who are not of a certain income level, you know what I mean? Another reason I think is because people just grow up with it. You know, it would be nothing for us to be on stage and look up into one of the boxes or out into the theater, and there'd be kids, even at something as serious as Traviata or something like that, right? So it's very much more accessible over there.
It's interesting, you know, that we have an opera company here in St. John's, Opera on the Avalon, which is wonderful. But you know, when Cheryl Hickman started it up, people were saying, well, opera in St. John's, that's kind of weird, you know? Yeah. But we don't realize that, you know, back in the day, operetta was extremely popular in this city.
Yeah, Gilbert and Sullivan was a big thing here.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, going back, you know, decades and decades and decades. So there was a tradition. It's just that it kind of went by the wayside for whatever reason. Yeah, it kind of fizzled out for a little while. Yeah. One of our dreams at some point is to do a Gilbert and Sullivan here. I think that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I saw a local production of Gilbert and Sullivan's Pirates of Penzance at the Arts and Culture Center. Shortly after the Arts and Culture Center opened. Oh my God, that would be so much fun to see. It was a great production, great set. I bet. Anyway, let's talk about the American musical theater. Yeah. How popular is that in Germany? It is getting more and more popular. I think when I first went over, which was 2007,
it was just starting to gain foothold over there. But now if you go to an opera house and they don't have a musical on their season, then that's an anomaly. Like maybe the biggest houses, like the Semperoper, like the Berliner Staatsoper, they might not be doing it, but any of the city operas, well, some of the Staatsoper might be doing it as well, but they'll all be doing musicals now. And then, for example, in Hamburg, the Lion King's been playing there for 30 years.
Wow.
Wicked has been in Germany for 25 or more years.
And are they sung in English?
No, they're in translation.
Really?
Yeah, so I went to see Wicked once in translation.
So, for example, you played the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Would you have sung it in German?
At our house, we normally did the dialogue in German and then the songs in original language.
Okay.
And then they would have subtitles.
So when you sang "If I Only Had a Heart,"
it was "If I Only Had a Heart." Yep.
Good.
I can't even imagine how that would be translated.
I wouldn't even know what heart is in German. But anyway. Well, that's really interesting. And you also you played Motel in Fiddler.
I did.
Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
And so Miracle of Miracles. You got to sing Miracle of Miracles, one of my favorite songs.
And you know what? That one we did all the songs in German.
Oh no!
Now that I think about it, that one was all in German. Wunder, ein Wunder ist geschehen.
Oh gosh! Wow.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. I had a great Seitel. She was just.
That's a great part.
It's a fantastic part.
That's a great part.
Unsung hero, and I think that was one of my favorite things about my career was I got to do the second or third tier and just have tons of fun. I had a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've said that the most special experience, your best experience in Germany was when you played the MC in Cantor and Ebb's Carousel.
Absolutely.
And you played it for 80 performances?
We did 80 performances over a span of a year. Yep.
In the same theater, or did you tour?
In the same theater. Yeah.
Wow.
So we did.
So it sounds to me like that would have been a hit.
That was a massive hit.
Wow.
We just had a ball. Now so in our house we had two theaters. We had the big house with 1,400 seats, and we had the small house with I think 400. And so we did it in the small house, and they translated the theater into a club. So they took out all the seats on the ground floor and put in tables and chairs, like little bistro tables, and then the balcony was normal theater seating. And so we had 40 performances, and then they put the theater back to however it was for other shows, and then we did 40 more performances then in the spring, and we just had the time of our lives.
You must have been darn good in the role, because you won awards for it.
I got a couple of awards for it.
Yeah. Tell me about the awards.
So one was sort of a People's Choice Awards, a People's Choice Award, an audience award. And so, to be honest, I don't really know how they did the voting, but like a People's Choice Awards, it was the audience that voted for it. So I won it that year for my role in Cabaret. And also the theater prize for the city of Gelsenkirchen, which is the city that the theater was in. And so
was there any award show or a special presentation when you received these awards?
Yep, they were done at two different galas in the theater. One at the beginning of the year of the following year. No, they were both done in the fall of the following year. Yeah, at different galas. And I was overjoyed, delighted, humbled. I felt great about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that role, the role of the MC, it seems to me that is a role that you can really make your own. Mm-hmm. You can make it be what you want it to be.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So how did you approach it the first time you played it?
I sat and talked to the director an awful lot about what she wanted to do, and the choreographer. We knew very early that we wanted to do it sort of no holds barred, that we wanted the audience to feel that they were in this dirty, seedy, disgusting club in the underbelly of Berlin. So I thought, okay, so this is where this person is starting. And this person probably has been there for 20 years because he's the head of the show. So, so that's sort of the jumping off point. And then talking to my colleagues on stage saying, you know, if ever we do anything that's uncomfortable, please let me know. Otherwise, we're just gonna play and have fun with this.
Of course, the other thing which you obviously you were very aware of was that the subtext of this show, this play, was that it was taking place in Nazi Germany.
Yep, yeah, the very beginning of the rise of the Nazis.
Yeah. So did that affect the way you approached it? I know it's done in different ways. Like sometimes cabaret has a darker ending, and sometimes it has a lighter ending.
Yeah.
How did you guys approach it in Germany?
We took the stance from the show that it was Cliff Bradshaw, who was the sort of the alter ego of Christopher Isherwood, the original author of the book, that it was Cliff Bradshaw coming to Berlin and seeing everything from his innocent eyes for the first time. So, and then at the end of the show, some productions will have it as everybody's going off to the gas chamber, or you know, the bombs start falling, or what have you. Ours was Cliff deciding that he's leaving Berlin, which is written in the book. But this was the first time that the MC and Cliff actually saw each other as real human beings, and we said goodbye to each other. So it wasn't as dark. My character became very dark and then became very fragile. That's sort of the arc that we took.
Are you changing it up or are you deep enough into rehearsal yet to know how he's going to?
Yeah, no, I'm not deep enough into rehearsal yet.
Okay,
They're sort of setting a lot of things and then bringing me in, because the MC can be on stage the entire time, and I think we may go in that direction here. I don't want to give too much away, and we're still deciding and playing with what to do. Yeah. But I'm excited to come back to the MC after more than 10 years, because I think I've matured a lot as a person. I've been away from the theater now for a few years, that I can come back to him with fresh eyes, having had the experience of playing him in the past, and having some more fun with him now.
Well, I will be there, and I will be very much looking forward to seeing your performance.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you for being on the program, Mark.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great. And that's it for this edition of Karl Wells Point to Point. Please join us again next time. It's great.
If you want convenience, Marie's Mini Mart is here for you. A one-stop shop for a variety of products, home-style breads, sandwiches, plus check out our freshly baked artisan breads and single-serve desserts exclusively at our in-store bakery on Frecker Drive. With 25 locations, wherever you go, there we are.
We want to hear from you. Provide feedback on this show or find out how you can get involved. Call, email us, or scan the QR code to take our quick survey.
Public transit, garbage pickup, parks and recreation programs, snow removal on your street. How can you stay informed about these and other important local services? Tune to City Council coverage on Rogers TV. See your community leaders at work on Rogers TV City Council coverage.
We invite you to play What's My Line?
Welcome, Mrs. Baker. Those folks over there need to guess your extraordinary occupation.
Are you an entertainer, Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Do people come to watch you perform?
Yes.
Do you travel for work?
Yes, I do.
Do you ever wear a special type of costume?
Yes.
Is your job, physical?
Yes, indeed.
Are you a member of a team?
Yes.